Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Cimnanya, and thank you all so much for all the love and support you show me here with. I am grateful. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about an interview Mariana Williams actually granted, and this interview was just giving me Zionist vibe and all that. Number one is that you all already know that these people, they know the real truth. I mean, what is going on Israel and all that, they still come out to ask you or gaslight you by asking you, does it mean that Israel does not have right to defend themselves? And I keep asking, defend themselves from what? And she went further to say that from the river to the sea is it's calling for unaliving of the Jewish, which that is not true. Now, the one is that I have noticed something with palm-colored women. I mean, these people are the kind of people that will come out to say one thing and the other one say the other thing. They have always been used to voting against their own interests and turn around to look at you like you are the most stupid person. Now they know that APEC has been lobbying and paying all sort of money to people to make them be on their side rather than being against them. And she is out here acting like Palestinians are the ones unaliving Israel. And I am asking, what the hell is going on? Because I really don't understand all of this and make it make sense, because it is not even making sense to me. Number one is that this young woman, this woman is actually coming up for the next, the president of America for the next year and all that. But I don't know what I am saying. Anyways, let's get into this.
Wait a minute. This is y'all's queen?
Be recognized, especially by a population that was driven out. So for me, it's like when we talk about a two-state solution, and every single, almost every single Israeli official that's in the government right now deciding, making these kinds of decisions, is very adamant that there is no option for a two-state solution, that it is not an option, that they will continue to eradicate, and that their goal is total destruction and devastation, that it is not to target said, Hamas, which, if it were the case to do that, they would be moving a lot more strategically militarily. You know what I'm saying? And also, I believe they would be more open to political solutions, like the exchange for permanent ceasefire was on the table via Hamas for an exchange of all, I'm saying refugees in my brain, but the hostages,
prisoners, hostages.
of the hostages. And the reason the hostages were taken in the first place, we have come to find out through reporting via Israeli reporting, was for them to get hostages so that they can have something as leverage to get their own hostages back, because there are thousands of Palestinians, many children being detained in Israel right now that are subjected to torture, sexual abuse, and just like insane things. I've just seen insane testimonies, and I've seen documentaries, and I've been reading things by Israeli historians, by Palestinian historians, artists, journalists. It's like, for me, I'm so overwhelmed by, like, what is it that is really possible for these, and when I see that, it really is about us deciding what we are willing to fight for, and that is humanity, I think, at the end of it and at the core of it. And like you said, the peace that we're talking about, the idea that we have to be proactively creating a peace, and we live in coexistence whether we like it or not at this point, is really what the reality of the situation is. So, like, yes, I mean, the idea of a two-state solution to me would also grant Palestinians their right to return, and their right to move freely and return to their homes that they were expelled from. But these things I don't see on the table or even a part of the conversation, because so often their plight is minimized to, like, oh, Hamas is in control of their entire narrative, but that's not the truth. The people are in control of their narrative right now because of social media. So it's like we're watching active propaganda in contrast to what people are going through and what we're seeing in real time. So I think a lot of people are in a state of kind of confusion and disillusion about, like, where we really stand on our moral rights, in our actual capacity to see what's going on and to move in such a way that protects all people, all children, no matter what nationality, no matter what they identify as. But I don't see that same respect on both sides at all. I see, like, a very clear, like, yes, this is the price of this, and this is what has to happen in order for us to survive. And I just don't believe that that's true. I don't believe in the full eradication of a people in order for another people to survive. I don't think that that's true. So, I don't know. That was a lot, sorry. But
the state of Mexico does acknowledge the right of the United States to exist. It does acknowledge the legitimacy of the state of the United States of America. And I hope that one day that you will go to Israel.
It says on half of took their land.
They do. I don't care what Noam Chomsky says. Mexico acknowledges the right of the United States to exist. I hope someday that you'll go to Israel. Many of the things that you just said, that you've seen with your own eyes, I don't think you've seen with your own eyes. Because some of the things that you just said, and I don't think that I've ever been in my life blind to the faults of Israel. And I haven't been silent about them either.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things that you just described were simply not the case. Israel is not an occupying force in Gaza. Israelis can't even go into Gaza. Hamas, they cannot even go in. Now the soldiers are there because of this war that you and I both disagree with.
They're before October 7th.
Excuse me?
They were there before October 7th.
No, Israelis cannot even go. I'm not in any way arguing that the blockade of Gaza was not a good thing. However, Hamas, not all of the misery of the Gazans is due to Israel. And Hamas is an extremely dictatorial force. It has received billions and billions of dollars that they have used for military rather than helping their own people. Many of the things that you said, and I don't think we can have like an hour conversation about Israel and Palestine right now, but I would respectfully suggest that some of what you said, including that you've seen with your own eyes, I hope that you will go to Israel. Because the situation, it's interesting because when you were in that part of the world, and I've been there 5 times, and I've been on the West Bank, and I've been with many Palestinians, I've been with many Israelis, and one of the things that I see there is a much greater sense of the nuance and the complication than is described by people on either side of the conflict talking in the United States today. And not all of this, much of what you said about apartheid in Gaza, Israel's not even there. It is run by Hamas. So Israel, and there are, as I said to you before, the settlements are illegal. I think all those people need to go back to where they came, back to the land of Israel. They do not belong, that land does not belong to them. But what you said in what you were just saying was calling for the eradication of Israel. I remind you that, well, you said that they do not necessarily have a right to exist. And so what I would ask is, I heard you, may I just ask you a few questions then? And I don't want to go into, I don't feel that this is the part where we can go into the whole thing. However, when Sinwar said, who is head of Hamas, this is not just about Netanyahu, I've said plenty, I do not agree with Netanyahu. Sinwar has said, we all saw the video. We will do October 7th a million times if we have to. The whole thing should be ours. It should be an Islamist state. That means the eradication of Israel, and it means the eradication of the Jews. So there are a lot of people here who would prefer not to die among both peoples. And so when you talk about how you don't see how a two-state solution can work, maybe you're right. But I think both peoples have a right to exist. Both peoples have a right to live. And I do not believe that every problem stems from the activity of the Israelis. And I think that the Israelis do have some legitimate claims of where there have been efforts. And if, anything else, if you're saying from the river to the sea, and that's just an Islamist state, that is calling for the eradication of Israel, and it is calling for the genocide of Jews. And I believe calling for the genocide of Jews is just as evil as calling for the as any genocide is not the idea of anyone being told go away, do not exist, is anathema to me. And I hope that you will, I've heard you enough tonight. When you do see, I trust very much your heart and your mind, Lauren. You're very, very smart. And all I can say is I hope that you will go to that part of the world someday and do see with your own eyes, because I do believe the situation is in many ways, and many of the things you said, it's like, no, that's not the fact. And I believe that when there is a greater appreciation for the larger story, I believe you will hold it in your heart and will perhaps see some of the things that you just said a little differently. That would be my respectful submission to you.
I hear you. I also want to just reiterate that I am absolutely 0% calling for the genocide of Jews.
But the things that you said would lead to the eradication of Israel, where are they to go?
No.
With what you said, this is my question, where are they to go?
Well, no one's asking them to go anywhere. We're talking about Palestinians' rights to be on their own land, to return to their own homes that were stolen from them, and to make sure that they have the equal, equitable rights in the land that is their ancestral land.
And it's the Jewish ancestral land as well. That's the argument, definitely.
The thing is, for some folks, I agree. I'm sure if they do a DNA test, they will say that they are from the Levant because many.
Well, have you read the Bible? Where do you think? Read the Bible.
Not only is Marianne Williamson a no, but Marianne Williamson is a hell no.
So I have a number of people who have responded to the video that I made about Marianne Williamson, saying that it didn't truly depict the entire interview. And I do feel like they are correct. That did not depict the entire interview. That did not depict the totality of what they talked about in that interview. And so I am going to I've gone through it already, and I'm like fixing clips and like trying to cut it down so that I can post it on here. So I'm going to be posting a series of clips from the interview so that people can make their own decisions based off the things she said. Because, like, let me be honest, there are things in that video, in the 2-hour-long video, that I agree with. I just think that there are also red flags that appear in that video. So let's watch this clip.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Even when it's obvious.
So there was quite a number of things said in that clip. And I will be so honest, I agree with a lot of what she said. However, the parts that I specifically do not agree with is how quick she was to try to say that this feeling of frustration doesn't just exist in the younger generation, it exists in older generations. And I also agree with that. But I think that the frustration does not exist in the older generation that looks like her. Let's just be honest here. When it comes to voting, it is people of her demographic who tend to vote in a way that is not conducive to the will of the people, which is something that she mentions later in the clip. I also want to touch on her mentioning the will of the people in this clip because it is kind of laughable to be able to recognize that all of these like corporate interests are being put into what our politicians do and the decisions that they make, while at the same time later on in the interview kind of disregarding the will of the people in terms of how people view what is happening in Palestine and to Palestinian people. She at one point says like people are getting all their information from Twitter, which I will also agree with that. I do think there are a lot of people who are solely getting information from Twitter and from social media and are not going outside of it. But I also think that all these people are reaching the same ideals about Palestine, that everyone is getting their ideals from Twitter and not actually being willing to listen to the wills of the people is something to point out. Again, I agree wholeheartedly with what she is saying about lobbying, with what she is saying about the ways in which our governmental officials are manipulated by major corporations, donors to do what they want. And I think these are great things to point out. But I think in saying that, and please, if I need to be corrected on this, correct me on this, has Marianne Williamson herself said that she will not be accepting any donations of this kind from any lobbying groups? I do not know the answer to that. I also think that it is a little bit frustrating to not put the expectation on older generations to make these decisions. Because at the end of the day, it's really funny how people are pointing to Gen Z as like, oh, Gen Z is going to save us. When Gen Z is 26 to, I believe, 10 years old, very freshly getting into the ability to vote and things like that. So it is a little bit frustrating when it feels like people who are within older generations do not, particularly people who look like her. She is 71 years old and she is a woman. Like, we have to be honest about these things. And if we're not willing to be honest about the demographic who continues to vote against their own interests, then we're going to have a problem. Like I said, I will be including further videos, just kind of trying to work through all of the videos, and I will keep you guys posted. But stay tuned for more videos from that interview. Well. In the span of a day, Marianne Williamson has put out a statement retracting what she has said in that clip that is now going viral of her. Let's read it together, shall we? I've always understood that Israel's siege on Gaza is morally indefensible and has caused immense suffering to Palestinians living there. But I had mistakenly assumed that Israel's withdrawal of settlements from Gaza in 2005 meant the term occupation no longer applied to Israel's control of the Strip. I'm now learning that the UN and many leading international bodies and human rights organizations continue to regard Gaza as part of the occupied territories. So I stand corrected on my earlier remarks suggesting otherwise. But more importantly, as president, I will fight for a future free of siege and occupation, one where every Israeli and every Palestinian can live in safety, dignity, and freedom. I also want to point out here that Marianne Williamson, unless she's going to go and correct it again, as far as it was shown in that interview that was done with Lauren, believes in a two-state solution. So just a whole lot of interesting things. And what I have to say to this is, again, this is alarming to me. You're running to be the president of the United States. People for months have been hyper focused on what is happening in Palestine. In that interview that she conducted with Lauren, almost a full hour of it was just them talking about Palestine. So to think that you're going to be able to run for president currently in what is currently happening and think that people aren't going to be hyper vigilant and want to understand your policies and your beliefs to the T on this situation is insane. To just be and it's funny to me because I get it. Everybody gets the time and the chance to learn about things at a pace in which is conducive to them being able to survive and sustain themselves. But she is campaigning as a president. She is running to represent the people of the United States. And one of the biggest issues that people in the United States are talking about and all over the world are talking about right now is what is happening to Palestinians. So this half-assed response isn't going to cut it for me. Something else I also wanted to talk about was in a video that I just posted. I said that I did not know if she takes any money from major corporations or lobbyists or things like that. And my boyfriend has so amazingly provided me with the open secrets about who she gets money from. So let's look at who she gets money from. Now, I do want to preface all of this by saying 57% of the donations that Marianne Williamson receives are from individuals who donated $200 or less to her campaign, which comes out roughly to $7 million during the 2020 election. Everything else that she made were from groups, corporations, and things like that. I also want to recognize that in our current political system, it is pretty much unfeasible to be entirely grassroots without any corporations making donations to you. But something that she brings up in that interview that I was just mentioning is that she believes that lobbyist groups and all these different corporations and groups have a kind of a hold on our politicians, on the decisions that they make. So I would just like to highlight some of the places that she has received money from. Kaiser Permanente is an example. Sony and AT&T are an example. Wells Fargo, which when I saw Wells Fargo, I was like, you can't be fucking serious right now. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the U.S. Army, Delta Airlines, McDonald's Corp, Fox Entertainment, U.S. Bancorp. And something that I want to point out about the U.S. Army is that in multiple occasions in the interview with Lauren, she states that she wants to create how we have the U.S. military has an academy. She was like, why isn't there an academy for peace? Why isn't there a academy or a division for peace and things like that, which within the United States government, which I'm like, great. These are great things to hear. But when you look at how she has received donations and who she has received donations from, that doesn't necessarily stick to what she is saying. Again, I want people to make informed decisions, but there are many things to watch out and look at when it comes to Marianne Williamson. She presents herself in a very particular way, yet her donors and the statements that she makes doesn't necessarily always align with her campaign promises or what she says when she's on these large stages giving these speeches. There is just a lot to be seen here, and I think we need to continue to be paying attention to all candidates who are running for any positions, because it's important to know not only who are they receiving money for, but what do they stand for, and does that align with you as a constituent?
This is all I got from this video, and yes, all eyes should actually be on her because she's running for the next president. I mean, she's one of the candidates. And number one is that we all already know how they do their thing, fighting against their own interests, all the damn time. You know, they know this is not right, but they try as much as they can to do it and all that. From the interview they conducted on her, Lauren conducted interview with her, and from what she was even saying, it is just really sad how they still wake up to defend Israel about what is going on. and then still try to ask you or gaslight you, does it mean that Israel doesn't have any right to protect or defend themselves from Palestine? And I keep asking, what are they defending? The land they have been occupying on, why is it that they are not letting the real owner take over the land? And then these white people still have look for a way to, like, defend Israel over what is going on. I'm not just only trying to defend them. They see the genocide that is happening and all that. I mean, it is so sad that people these days are like, their moral standard is just zero. Like, no matter what you are coming out for, or no matter who you are, I mean, it does not, wouldn't cost you anything to probably condemn what is going on. I mean, the genocide that is going on, the killing of innocent children, most especially, bombing of hospitals and all that. It takes you in to condemn that and still move ahead to, like, continue what you want to continue with. And then she knew that AIPAC is already giving out so much money to everybody and all that. And I am asking her, does it mean that if that money is given to you, are you going to take it or reject it? We also need to know about that. I mean, this is just all I got. But then let me know what you all think in the comment section. But then, sincerely speaking, I do not trust palm-colored woman when it comes to anything that got to do with politics, because before you know what is going on, they are going to switch up and off and on you, and then leave you thinking about yourself. But for me, she is a no-no. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.